This pistol is encrusted with decorative silver, and then it's got red coral.
A big thing at the time where you would need to carry your wealth on you. For a piece from the Ottoman Empire such as this, you would keep it on your item to not get robbed.
Well, if I was back in that time, would I want to walk out and have this bling on me? Am I going to be a target? I am fascinated by it, and I love, the whole story. And it also goes back to, how this was carried over, why they wore their wealth. This was manufactured for somebody of high importance. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of History Roundtable. And of course, we've got Josh and Sean, and we're going to talk about some more really cool historical items. And again, to be clear, our objective is to just have a conversation about something really cool in front of us that has historical ties. And, we really want to go into great detail, but we only have so much time. So we kind of just scratch the surface just to get our blood pumping, but maybe spark an interest in you. So let's get it started.
All right. So let me tell you what we have on the tray today.
And I love this.
Take a look at that.
That's a lot of bling.
That's a lot of bling.
So, okay, what is this? Obviously, it is a weapon. This is a flintlock pistol from the mid-18th century. This is not just an ordinary pistol. This is something that it's extraordinary because it's almost like carrying a piece of jewelry that also functions as a weapon. What I mean by jewelry, if you look here, this pistol is encrusted with decorative silver, and then it's got red coral, and then these panels here, which is called niello. And this was a type of design where you have this kind of a contrast of black and white. And we'll kind of get some close-ups of this, but the intricacy of this silver wire inlay into the wood is just mind-boggling. And you'll also notice that on the top of the barrel has gold decorative overlay. This is called kaftkari, and it's a type of overlay for decorative elements on top of iron. And then this is all silver embossed. So you kind of got to ask yourself, well, who would have carried something like this? And, was this something that was ornamental, or was it actually out there being used? And these are kind of the things that, I want you guys to ask these questions because this is what they want to know. So fire away, guys.
Well, that was a big reason why, fun fact, this is a piece of my personal collection that I might have got from a certain Sean. One, because it's just so complicated. Every single time I look at it, I see something new and different. And for me, this screams a pirate captain's pistol. You've got all the different notes, the red coral ties it back to the sea and, coast pirates and the gold work on top of the silver. There was a big thing at the time where you would need to carry your wealth on you. This is prior to banks. How would you keep your wealth on you without, one, being taxed out of it, and two, to not get robbed? Well, you would keep it on your items. So for a piece from the Ottoman Empire such as this, all these little silver bubbles, it's actually missing some, and that's pretty much tells part of the story, right?
Well, and see, I've had flintlock pistols that are silver mounted over the years, and where it's not something that is a structural element of the gun, like this finial here of the trigger guard, that was broken off, and the ears of the butt cap, those were also broken off, and basically anything that wasn't really tied down, that person was obviously in a pinch and needed to use that silver as money. And let's remember, guys, silver was silver, gold was gold, copper was copper. They really didn't care what country it came from. Well, I take that back. I mean, certain countries were producing more pure coinage than others, hence the Spanish monarchy. They had some of the purest metals in the world. So of course those coins were the most desirable, but in general. So you have, and again, I'm constantly asking myself, well, if I was back in that time, would I want to walk out and have this bling on me? Am I going to be a target? Well, you also have to think about the environment that this pistol was originally designed and intended to be used in. In the Ottoman Empire, the Middle Eastern region, the boundaries changed over time. But, southern Greece, Albania, these are all the regions that this type of a pistol would have been manufactured. And this was manufactured for somebody of high importance, somebody of maybe extreme wealth, or it was designed as a presentation, as a gift to maybe establish some kind of a trade alliance. You never know. And that's what the mystery that, my mind goes crazy, trying to let this thing maybe talk to me. So when you mentioned these little nodules, you never know. Maybe the guy was, desperate and he had to, knock one off to pay for something. You never know. Or it was knocked off in, during the period of use when it was actually being fired.
Yeah, and I remember another thing you had mentioned, that a lot of times too, the actual furniture could have been English made or Spanish, and they embellished upon it.
Yes. So basically, most of all of the weapons, the firearms in the Middle Eastern region, were based on European examples because they were far superior in quality, and they were trying. And once they realized they couldn't make the locks as good as the Europeans, they just started importing them. So you'll have a whole gun that was made in that region, but with an imported lock and maybe even a barrel, because they just maybe didn't have the technology or the wherewithal to make quality pieces like the Europeans. So, but I will say this lock was definitely made in the region and by somebody who really knew what they were doing, who studied the European examples. So this is all homogeneous. In other words, all of this was made in that region.
Yeah.
But I just, these are incredible survivors. And the fact that, you mind if I work the action?
Absolutely.
So,
I'd rather you know.
yeah. So, it works just as designed. I'm not going to spark it because you don't need to. And again, unless you know what you're doing, don't even mess with these things. Just admire them for what they are, because it's human nature to want to work the mechanisms. But you also have to understand these are hundreds of years old. The springs within, they're temperamental. They will crack and break. And if that happens, it could be catastrophic for the rest of the gun. There is a mainspring in here that if that breaks, it'll bust out the whole bottom of the mortise which the lock is sitting within in the stock. So I know people want to do it, but I'm just saying, do it with caution, because you could really mess things up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece for sure.
So this is not your average bear. We just wanted to point this out because it's special, because of the things that we've already pointed out. What you're normally going to encounter on the collector market, it just so happens I have some other examples that are very similar. Like here is a pair of pistols that are very similar to that one. And these are silver mounted as well. But again, you'll notice that it's not as embellished. So there is a myriad of levels of complexity and quality and adornment. Some of these, I've seen some pistols in museums that are so encrusted with gold and silver and gemstones, it's like you don't even want to touch it. And really, it's because it was for display. It was a presentation to a king or a sultan or a pasha. So this is really remarkable stuff. And it ties into everything that we love with the pirate era, because there were so many really specific times. The Barbary Coast, Corsair pirates. There's so many historical time periods you can connect stuff like this to.
I've got a question. So, I'm looking at the barrel. And so, Tony, if you can kind of take a look at the size, what caliber would you say of musket ball would this thing fire?
Excellent question, because these were to fire a single projectile. Because again, you have the interior of the majority of these barrels are smooth bore. In other words, there's no rifling whatsoever. So a small, smaller caliber than the interior diameter. And again, we're going to go into some more detail, when we get out to the range and demonstrate on these things. And I have to stress, I do this for demonstration purposes. Don't feel like this is something you want to do at home unless you really know what you're doing and understand the consequences of your actions. That's the PSA. But anyway, we will demonstrate how the flintlock works, the pros and cons, but again, to fire one projectile, there's a process here of reloading, and you'll notice, why isn't there a functioning ramrod here? How do I reload this thing? Well, if you can imagine, when you were on top of a camel or even an elephant, you're up high off the ground. If you lose that ramrod, the ability to reload your weapon, now the weapon is really no more than a club. So how did they do it? Well, they carried the ramrod on a lanyard around their neck or on hanging off the animal somewhere that was easily and readily available. Because obviously when they would pull these out of a holster, maybe the leather would catch on the ramrod and the ramrod would get lost. And if you're at a full gallop, good luck finding that. So that's why you can always tell certain weapons by the overall form on how they were created. And it just is an interesting, so people always go, well, why is it fake? Is it not real? I'm like, no, they had a different function because of the animals that they were using at the time.
Interesting.
Hence, that one is the same way.
It seems like this is sealed, so it never was intended to have a functional ramrod as part of the gun.
Right.
Wow.
So, when I started collecting, I was mentored by some really great people in the industry. And when I first saw these, I'm like, well, is that a reproduction? Because it doesn't function. And I, had to really ask the right questions to understand why they built a weapon like this in that region.
Wow.
And again, if you have only one shot, wouldn't you want to back up in case you missed? Yeah. So generally, when this was made, chances are there was a mate to it. So somewhere out there in the world is the mate to this gun.
And if you have it, please let me know.
And again, that's another question. Well, are pairs worth more than singles? Yes, because the likelihood of these remaining together all this time since the day they were manufactured is remarkable. I don't know what those exact, mathematical ratio numbers are, but the chances are very slim.
Wow.
So when you encounter, and especially when the guns are relatively in the same condition, because I will get pairs and I'll find one that's been worked way more than the other.
Yeah.
So would you say these are Ottoman as well as that?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yep. And they're called Khyber, pistols. There's a couple different pronunciations and styles because of the regions where these were made.
Wow.
And again, I don't profess to be an expert in Islamic and Middle Eastern weapons, but I am fascinated by it. And I love, the whole story. And it also goes back to, how this was carried over, why they wore their wealth. There are depictions and notations going back to the Crusades that the Christian warrior monks, if you will, saw the enemy coming from great distances because the sun was reflecting off of all the gold and silver they were wearing. Which is kind of nuts if you think about it. But that's what they did.
Wow.
Fascinating. Well, if you had to place this on the cool factor, Sean, where do you think this would stand out of 10?
Well, actually, you've got two different items for the cool factor.
And this is a great way to maybe explore this chart, how things are ranked. So if we were just talking about these, I'd still place them on the same level of, say, a 6 or a 7. And that's when you can compare it to this, because this is up there. This is in that 8, 9 plus of holy crap, because it's got everything going for it. Yeah. And you could see, a famous pirate lord like Barbossa or whatever having a gun like this.
Absolutely.
And why wouldn't you, if you had the opportunity to, take a prize and you just, well, okay, we're going to go down that road. Here we are, one ship against another, and somebody ends up not alive anymore. Well, that possession is now taken as a prize. Did I say that right?
You did.
not alive anymore.
Yeah, that
opposed to- sorry, guys, I'm trying to conform with everything that we need to do now. Anyway, so yeah, I would say this is just awesome, obviously. And these are awesome as well. But again, you're looking at how we critique things. Quality, materials used, condition, functionality, and then the history that is connected to these things.
Yeah. And I know that all of these have different price ranges. And, you know, it's so hard to put $1 figure on one specific piece like this. But, you know, general range, Sean, for these specific kind of guns, going for the very low end to the very high end, what is that vast range typically go for?
So typical pistols of this period, 18th century from the Ottoman Empire, that are the utilitarian ones. They're not going to be, silver mounted. They might have a little bit of silver decoration, but majority of the furniture is either going to be iron or brass.
Yeah.
Those are going to start anywhere from $750, and they're going to go up from there. So this is a price point that is still very affordable.
Yeah.
And you can own something that's real.
Yeah.
It's not a reproduction. Now, the other thing, the variable that comes into how these things are priced and valued, condition and originality. Because these things are hundreds of years old, during the period of use, they broke and they were fixed, repaired, put back into service. Well, as time goes on, they get broken from mishandling and what have you. So for me, I did formal training with many gunsmiths to pick out restoration. This is something that is a major issue when it comes to collecting arms and armor, because you don't know what that person 50 or 100 years thought that they were doing something good by cleaning or altering or thinking that they were restoring it in a proper way, and they actually ruin it. It's like, do you clean a coin? No, right? You leave it alone. So I have to ascertain whether these things were repaired, restored during the period of use, or something that was maybe done even as early as 2 months ago. So that's kind of why people gravitate to guys like me, not necessarily me, but guys in the industry, to guide the collectors, to safeguard them from making big mistakes. Because believe me, that's the only way you learn in this industry. School of hard knocks. And if I can save you guys from making a mistake, wouldn't you?
So wouldn't you say conceivably, so something like this, I know like in, the Civil War, if a battle was won, the opposing, general would surrender his sword. So was it possible that maybe a Ottoman pirate or Barbary pirate or someone lost this, had to surrender it, and it made its way to the United States or England as being surrendered by
the above?
Yeah.
All of the above. And that's where I love this type of format, because we're just having a conversation here, and look where it's going.
Yeah.
We're starting to unravel, peel the layers of the onion to have this thing actually kind of talk to you. And the possibilities are endless.
Yeah. Because where did this originate? Do you know?
What's the Ottoman Empire?
But I mean,
probably southern Turkey.
But from there, like say where you found it, let's say, did it come from Europe, or is it you found it in the United States?
It's in the United States. So, and that's the other thing. So many of these items will have a legitimate provenance. Okay. Let's define what provenance really is. Okay. It's not just a story that was handed down by Uncle Bob. That's always helpful, but it's not going to hold up in court. In court, it's what you can prove. That's what real provenance is. So in other words, if you were to say, well, I bought this from this guy and he said it belonged to, Sultan such and such. Well, that's nice, but how do you prove it?
Yeah.
So be careful out there. When somebody says, well, it's got great provenance, well, what does that mean? Is it just a story? Or do you have documents that are notarized, that have witnesses that can really substantiate the story that goes along with this?
Yeah.
So believe me, I've been sold a lot of crazy stories over the years.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So the biggest thing, whenever you're looking for whether it's flintlocks, chests, coins, maps, or more, always talk to an expert before you buy. It's very easy to go find something at a flea market or on the internet, and it looks right, so you buy it, and it turns out that it's very fake. We've all been burned. Everybody runs into it at some time, but we are here to tell you as much as we can to hopefully save you from that next pain. So if you do have treasures like these and you want to know more about them, or possibly are looking to sell some things, we are always in the market. We're always buying and selling. So we would love to help you out. So you can always contact us. But is there anything else you want to say about these before we finish up here today?
Just to be clear, it's very difficult when I sell these things because I become so attached because I do the deep dive in the history. So I don't want to say it's like, selling an arm or a child, but you become attached to these things. And it's an honest illness, but like I tell my wife, there are worse things that I could be addicted to.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, if you love treasures like these, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We've got a lot more to show you. We'll see you on the next one.
See you.
Stay tuned.
History Roundtable, an all-new history series. Don't forget to like and share your favorite episodes. And to learn more about the artifacts on the show, visit tortugatrading.com and commodorecoins.com. Till next time.